Hey everyone, this is Friedel Hakurage Raven, and I'm here with my recap and review of Animal Kingdom Season number 5, Episode number 12, which is the penultimate episode. There's only one more episode left, and the finale will be next week, and I'm like, you know what? I would have loved for them to do a 2 episode finale, but it is what it is. So yeah, Episode number 12, it's titled Loose Ends. And it basically, yeah, it relates to the episode in the sense that it basically shows the Cody men trying to kind of take care of certain loose ends, which I'll get to in a bit. Anyway, the episode opens up with Greg. He's getting high, which, of course. And I mean, as far as my opinion goes, I really think that the writers kind of messed up Greg's arc in this particular season. It's as if the writers couldn't figure out what to do with Greg. So they basically gave him back his party persona and getting high, but what can you do? So he gets high, and this is where Frankie comes knocking at his house, and she's like, "Can I come in?" And Greg is like, "Yeah, come in." And of course, Frankie notices that Greg is high. So Frankie starts talking about the job, and she's like, "Okay, do you think that the job is doable?" And Frankie doesn't know that Wyatt ended up moving the money, and this is where Greg tells her about about Wyatt moving the money towards the seaports and how there's a lot of security. And Frankie is like, "Okay, so is that going to be a problem? Should I be worried?" And Greg is like, "Oh yeah, you don't have to worry about anything. It's not a problem. My brothers and nephew are handling it." And of course, Frankie, because Greg is acting very high, he doesn't even drink the coffee that she brought him. And yeah, Frankie is of course worried. So we go to the Cody house, and yeah, Andrew, Joshua, and Darren are listening to the police radio, and because they want to know whether or not the police found out about Living Good, and they did. So they found the car, and they found Living Good's hand, and of course they're going to frame it on the cartels. And Andrew's like, "You know what? This is good. This is good. We can work from here." And Greg comes in, and this is also where Darren and Joshua talk about how Chadwick keeps on contacting them about the money. And Andrew is like, "You know what? Uh, Joshua and Darren, you go scout the location, and I'll handle the Chadwick stuff. And I also have to handle a particular job." So he asks Greg to come with him, and I think Andrew also notices that Greg is high, and yeah, Andrew doesn't like that one bit. So we get to the flashback, and Janine is talking to Jake. Yeah, I kind of forgot his name for a second. Yeah, Janine is talking to Jake, and Jake is like, "You know what, Janine? There's nothing for you to worry about. Manny and I handled the problem. Manny is, I guess, from what I remember, Jake tells Janine that Manny is handling the vehicle situation right now, and Janine, of course, thanks Jake. And yeah, this is where Janine is also like, "You know what? With Max dead, why don't we go and rob his bar?" And Jake is like, "Are you okay? You need to stay here with your kids. You need to lie down for a bit." And Janine is like, "You know what, Jake? If you want to come with me, come with me. It's your choice, but I'm going." And of course, Jake will come with her. So we see Darren and Joshua at Darren's bar, and yeah, because the liquor license was taken away from Darren, the hearing is next week. So Darren is like, "You know what? We still have to make money, so I've asked one of my people to cook one of the people that I know to cook tacos, and we'll give beer to them, to private people, and all of that stuff." And the barkeep is yeah, the barkeep doesn't like the idea, but Darren is like, "You know what? This is what we have to do for right now. And if the cops come calling, text me and don't say anything." And the barkeep is like, "Hey, Darren, I really don't know anything." And I kind of laughed at Joshua's expression back there. Like, look at his expression. He is way too worried. Like, I don't think Darren's plan requires Joshua to be this worried. So Andrew's getting the car clean, and this is where he ends up talking to Craig about his getting high problem. And Andrew's like, "You know what, Craig? You have to stop taking drugs, because if they saw you like this, they are going to take Nick away from you." And he wants Craig to get his act together, and Craig is like, "Yeah, get off my back." So Andrew and Craig end up meeting with Chadwick, and Andrew is like, "We're going to get you your money. However, it's going to take us a few days." And of course, Chadwick doesn't like that. Chadwick's like, "Okay, so you guys agreed to meet me without giving me my money. You know what? You guys have until tomorrow." He gives them the location, and he's like, "You know what? You guys need to give me the money, or else I'll do something." And I'm like, "Chadwick, don't you know that you're dealing with the Cody men?" Like, Chadwick is basically making things worse for him. And he also notices that Greg is high, but he doesn't do anything about it. So we see Julia breaking into Max's bar, and Jake's here, Manny's here. Janine breaks into Max's bar, not Julia. Julia's a kid. Yeah, Julia's here, and Andrew is here, and Janine is having fun. Janine is like, you know what, I'm going to search around, and she tells Andrew and Julia to, you know what, if they like something, they can have it. And of course, Julia doesn't like any of this, while Andrew decides to search around for something that grasps his interest. So Janine goes into Max's office. She takes out a few wads of cash, and she's like, you know what? There's a safe here, and she opens up the safe. There's money in there, and there's also this logbook which Manny is reading. So it's time for them to go, and yeah, Julia doesn't take anything. However, Andrew ends up taking a lighter. So the next thing that Andrew and Greg have to deal with is talking to Ralphie. I guess its name is Ralphie, if I remember correctly. Basically, the person who works for Pete. And Andrew is like, you know what? I have to do something here. And Greg is like, okay, so this work is important, but me getting my fix isn't important. And Andrew is like, you know what, Greg? If you want to stay here, stay here. If you want to go home, go home. So Andrew goes to meet with Ralphie again. I'm not sure about the name. And he puts a gun to Ralphie's head, and he's like, you know what? If Pete has to say something about my family, he can say directly. He can say it directly to me, and I want you to sell me a car. And yeah, the guy has no other option but to accept Andrew and sell him the car. And after he sells Andrew the car, he's like, wait, Andrew, I have to take some stuff out of the trunk. And Andrew's like, what stuff? So Andrew goes, he looks into the trunk, and it's the drugs from the cartel that Pete said that he flushed away. And I'm like, you know what? That was such an obvious lie from Pete. I mean, everyone could tell that Pete was obviously lying. Of course, he didn't flush away like $1 million dollars worth of drugs. And yeah, I'm excited to see how the Cody men are going to make Pete pay. So we see Darren and Andrew, they're at the port, and they're like scouting the area, and they notice Wyatt's office, and they're like, you know what, that's why he uses the port as his own personal bank, because not only can he keep an eye on it, it's also because there's a whole lot of security around, so he doesn't have anything to worry about. And yeah, you can tell that this job is going to be very, very difficult, and they do have to come up with an impressive plan to pull it off. So Craig is at his house, and he's searching for more drugs, and as he's searching, he notices one of Nick's toys. And yeah, it's a sad moment because he really loves his son, but he throws the toy away. Frankie comes in because she's going to stay at Craig's for a while, and yeah, Frankie's like, Greg, I don't like you in this state. You need to clean up. And Craig is like, you know what? Get off my back. So we get to see Andrew. He's playing around with a lighter. Julia is throwing stones at the trailer for some reason. And this is where she's like, you know what? Mom killed that guy. And Andrew's like, Mom told us not to talk about it. And Julia also, she literally asks Andrew whether or not something is wrong with their own mother. And Andrew doesn't answer. He's playing with the lighter, and he ends up burning his hand for some reason, because I guess he liked the sensation. So it's nighttime, and Darren and Joshua are still trying to figure out how to pull the job. They can go by water, but then again, security is in the water as well. They can also be cornered and all of that stuff. They also need equipment. And yeah, but this is where Darren and Joshua are like, you know what? I guess we'll have to pull this job in the morning. Doing it at night is going to be very risky. And this is also where Joshua actually asks Darren about, do you think that Smurf would have accepted such a job? Because as far as Joshua is concerned, Wyatt probably has close to $1 million in cash that they can steal. And Darren is like, you know what? Maybe Smurf would have said yes to such a job. So back to the flashback, and Manny and Janine are going through the logbook, and Manny is like, hey, what do you think what do you reckon we should do with this logbook? And Janine is like, we can use it because it's basically all of the contact information about every criminal that has worked with Max. And Manny is like, okay, so what? You just want us to call each and every criminal and tell them that Max is gone and now you're the queen? And Janine is like, you know what? All of these criminals were angry at Max because he took away a lot of their profits, and we can form a new relationship with these criminals. We can cut them in job and all of that stuff. We can create a network. And this is where Jake steps in, and Jake is like, Janine, you're talking crazy. I wish Colin was here so that he could talk some sense into you. You need to focus on your kids and not becoming a crime queen. And Janine doesn't like that. Janine didn't like Jake bringing up Colin, and she walks away because you know that Janine is going to create a network for herself. So Frankie and Greg come home, and they notice Andrew cleaning his new car. And this is where Frankie is like, Andrew, did you talk to Darren and Joshua? And Andrew is like, no, I didn't. And the look that Andrew gave Frankie, I'm like, Frankie, walk away, walk away. And yeah, she walks away, and Andrew decides to talk to Craig about his drug problem. And Andrew is like, you know what? I'm actually glad that Ren ended up taking Nick away, because no child deserves to see their dad in such a state. And Smurf isn't here anymore to clean up your mess. So again, you need to clean up your act. So we see Darren and Joshua, they're sharing lunch, and it's a nice little scene considering that these two were basically beating each other up like 2 or 3 episodes ago. But yeah, Darren is like, you know what, I don't recognize Oceanside anymore. And Joshua is like, you know what, things are going to change, so if you can't beat them, steal from them. And Darren is like, wait, what do you have in mind? And this is where Joshua, because he's a smart dude, he ends up bringing up a proposal. He's like, you know what, Smurf's way of laundering money, it was slow with all of the properties and the rentals. However, we can do it quite faster if we end up owning businesses. And he's like, Darren, do you think you and your brothers are ready to be business owners? So yeah, I'm ready for the Cody men to take the next step in building up their empire after Smurf. So before they can continue the conversation, the barkeep ends up texting Darren that the cops are here, so Darren has to go. And Joshua ends up dropping Darren off at the bar. And Joshua is like, will you be okay? And Darren's like, you know what? If you end up getting a call from an unknown number, it's probably me making my one call. So pick it up. But don't worry, I know how to talk to cops. And these are the 2 cops that end up interrogating Darren. They ask him questions about Living Good, why Living Good was so interested in Darren. And Darren's like, yeah. Living Good was working with my roommate Adrian. And I'm like, your roommate? Don't you mean you're basically your husband? But yeah, he's like, Living Good was working with my roommate, and then the roommate ended up running away. So Living Good thinks that I know where he is and all of that stuff. So Darren plays it cool. He plays it cool. I think the officers end up buying his lies, I guess. He also tells them about how Living Good took away his liquor license. So he's basically, I guess, telling them that Living Good was really out for him for some reason, even if it meant he had to cut through or jump over some lines to do it. So yeah, the cops are like, you know what, if you remember something, please give us a call. And Darren is not going to call them. So everyone has gotten together at the Cody house. They're talking about the job, and Frankie is like, how much time do you wait for you to pull such a job? And they're like, you know what, it could take weeks, it could take a month. We have to be very careful. And Frankie doesn't like that because Frankie wanted this job to be done very quickly. So the Cody men have to talk about something else, and they're like, this isn't job related. So Frankie walks away. She's like, you know what, might as well go for a swim. And I'm like, yeah, Frankie, I mean, this is how the Cody men function. There are things they're going to discuss with you, and then there are going to be a lot of things that they aren't going to tell you nothing about. So this is where the Cody men talk about the Chadwick situation, and they're like, you know what, we have to pay Chadwick, and then we'll cut ties from him. And they're also worried about Chadwick acting up and basically trying to frame them. And Andrea's like, he can't frame us. We didn't shoot Chadwick. We did nothing. Not Chadwick. They're like, Andrea's like, we didn't shoot Living Good, so there's nothing that he can frame us with. And yeah, they just want to cut loose Chadwick, but it's going to be more difficult, I guess, but we'll see. So Janine decides to pay a visit to Baz's mom because, again, the way that after Baz's mom told Max about what Janine was up to, Janine was right. Like, she and her kids could have been killed. But yeah, she's like, you know what, Baz's mom, I don't remember her name. Yeah, she's like, you know what, Baz's mom, you did what you thought you needed to do, but Max is dead. You work for me now. And she ends up asking him about what Max did at the strip club, and she tells Janine, and she tells Janine that Max used to sell drugs, a bit of money. Also, he needed receipts about which men liked which women, I guess for blackmail and stuff. And yeah, Janine is like, you know what? You work for me now. Congratulations. So the barkeep is very, very interested in what's been happening with Adrian and why the cops are here. And this is where he ends up talking to Darren about the situation. He's like, Darren, you have to tell me what's happening. And yeah, Darren tells the barkeep about how Adrian got mixed up in drug dealing. He got caught. Then he started working for Living Good, and how Living Good wanted him to spy on the family. Smurf found out. And in order to save Adrian's life, Adrian had to go away. And he's basically catching some good surfs. I guess it's called surfs. Waves. My bad. I don't know what happened. But yeah, Darren is like, you know what? He's probably catching some good waves right now. But you have to believe me when I tell you that Adrian is still alive. And that's more than I can say for other people who have wronged Smurf. And yeah, the barkeep learning about this, I'm like, should I be suspicious of the barkeep? Was he working as Living Good's mole? I wouldn't be surprised. But then again, I'm like, please don't. Like, let the Living Good situation die. I just want the Living Good situation to be over. No more moles, no more investigations, in my opinion. So Frankie decides to talk to Craig, and yeah, Frankie is like, Craig, you need to, again, you have to clean up your act. And Craig is like, you don't understand what I'm going through right now, the emotional turmoil I'm going through right now. And Frankie's like, I understand, I really do, but I also want you to listen to me. I want you to realize that you need to accept it, that you aren't doing this for fun anymore, that this is a legit problem that you have to take care of. And yeah, Frankie's words really got to Craig. So while Joshua and Andrew are waiting for Chadwick in an alley, this is where they talk about cats being one generation away from from going feral. And because Andrew used to watch a whole lot of, not used to, I think he still watches it, yeah, a whole lot of nature documentaries, animal documentaries, he gives this piece of information to Joshua. And Chadwick comes in, and Andrew hands him the money and a bit extra. And Chadwick's like, okay, so what's the extra money for? And Andrew's like, because we don't want to work with you no more. And Chadwick's like, yeah, you guys are making a mistake. You need me. And Andrew's like, no, I don't need you. And Chadwick actually threatens them to talk about Living Good with the police. And this is where Joshua steps in, and he's like, you know what? I don't think that you'll do this. I think you're smarter than that. He basically puts Chadwick on the line, and because Chadwick has nothing. If you think about it, Chadwick necessarily has nothing. If he tries to incriminate the Cody man, he's going to go down as well. So we get to see Craig's dealer come to his home. I think his name is Zane. And I actually like this scene because even though the dealer wanted to sell something to Craig was like, no, I'm not into this anymore, so please leave. And the dealer, respectfully, he left. So yeah, hopefully nothing bad happens to Craig in the finale, but let's see. I really don't want him going back to his old habits. So Darren walks past Joshua with the bag, and Joshua is like, where are you going? And Darren is like, you know what? I'm sick of sharing a bathroom with Pope. So I guess Darren is moving out. He's going back to Adrian's the house he and Adrian bought. I'm not really sure, but I guess he's going back to his place, which would also mean that he now trusts Joshua, because remember, he came to live at the Cody house because he wasn't trusting of Joshua. So Joshua is looking, he's researching Wyatt, and Darren is like, okay, so that's Wyatt, huh? And Joshua is like, yep. So are we doing this job? And this is also where they end up repeating the conversation they had about whether or not Smurf would have gone for such a job. And Darren is like, you know what? I told you that she might. And yeah, these two realize that the Cody men need a win. win. They need a big win. And I guess they'll also go ahead with being business owners, because there's a little joke about whether or not Andrew would be comfortable being a business owner. And they're like, you know what, as long as Andrew doesn't have to interact with the general public, he'll be okay. So in the flashback, we see Julia and Andrew, they're camping. Andrew is asleep, and Janine comes in. She lays down with her kids, and she's like, Julia, did you miss me? Julia's like, mm-hmm. And she asks what happened to Andrew's hand, and Julia's like, he burned himself. And Julia's like, okay. And Janine is like, okay, I guess he won't do it again. And Julia is like, you know what, Mom? He'll do it again because he's a boy. And Janine is like, you know what, Julia, let me worry about your brother, okay? And the look that Smurf ends up giving Julia, like Smurf realizes that Julia is a problem. Julia isn't fitting into the lifestyle that Janine wants to create. And even though she loves Julia in her own way, I really think that if Julia was accepting of Janine's lifestyle, Janine would have had a good relationship with Julia, like good when it comes to Smurf at least. But because Julia isn't fitting into her lifestyle, she's pushing Janine away, and she's basically giving, she's basically also pulling Andrew towards her. Janine doesn't like that because she's giving a different perspective to Andrew. She is likely being an obstacle in front of Andrew when it comes to the type of training that Janine wants to give Andrew. So it's nighttime, and Andrew is cleaning up his guns because he's like, you know what, you have to clean your guns a lot more because we're near the ocean. The salt in the air ruins them. And he asks Joshua when was the last time that he cleaned a gun. And Joshua is like, you know what, I have never cleaned my guns because Mom wasn't a fan of guns. We had no guns in the house, which basically links to the trauma that Julia went through after she saw her own mom murder Max. She wasn't a fan of guns. And as Joshua is walking away, Andrew's like, you know what, you did good. Everything that you said worked out the way that you planned. Chadwick, living good, everything. You're smart like Baz. And he's also like, Joshua, where you're going? And Joshua's like, you know what, I'm taking out the trash because tomorrow's trash day. And Andrew's like, you know what, I'll do that for you, huh? Yeah, I'll do that for you. And Joshua's like, oh yeah, okay. So as Joshua is going back into the house, this is where Andrew decides to tell Joshua that Pete never flushed away the coke. And the look that Joshua gives Andrew, oh, you know that Joshua is angry. Like, Joshua is angry. And this is where the episode ends. So yeah, I guess in the finale, they're going to try and rob Wyatt, and they're also going to try and intimidate Pete to get all of the drugs back, or at least some money back. And yeah, two major jobs in the finale. Hopefully the writers will give each job the justified time that it required to be told properly, or maybe we'll get a cliffhanger ending and we'll get to see what happens in season number 6. Who knows? But yeah, I will be doing a written review of this for the Geek Theory. The link to that will be down in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought of Animal Kingdom season number 5 episode number 12 down in the comment section below. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I am excited about the finale. So yeah, let me know. And until next time, stay happy, stay safe, stay blessed. See you guys later.